Ask HN. Successful one-person online businesses. This question was asked a few years ago. Newsicum anorcum item it equals 22,858,035 by committed, and I'm curious what it looks nowadays. How many people on Hacker News are running successful online businesses on their own? What is your business, and how did you get started? Defining successful as a profitable business which provides the majority of the owner's income. Have any recent trends affected your business? I ran a collection of websites that I built, bolted together with PHP, MySQL, and Ninx. Most of them were curated media sites which made income with advertising revenue. A few services, most notably was a dating site I made for Mormons, which the church, interestingly enough, used a blind broker to buy and shut down within a year of going live. I mostly ran the websites into the ground with my custom wannabe frameworks on $5 VPSs and lost interest. 2021 I sold the remaining 3 income-generating websites for just shy of $1 million. I started the projects with a second person, but ended up buying out their interest and running solo. I consider it success because I managed to last over a decade making on average $400,000 a year gross with that business umbrella. Advertising and publishing changed, and continues to change by leaps and bounds on a yearly schedule. A lot good, a lot bad, but it's the same business over the years. Any tips on how to run a site on a $5 VPS? I built an MVP on a $5 VPS. But I had to recently upgrade to a $12 VPS, as some of my analytics process were being stopped because of low memory. Aside from writing better code, I found out that using Linux utils app via system calls is the most effective solution, as nothing I can write can ever be even remotely as performant as something like grep. I am following a similar path to yours, but my stack is a bit complicated. Python plus Sclite on VPS. Vue, Nuxt plus Auth on Firebase. The process is extremely hacky and experimental, so it might change. I am not planning to use a proper backend, as the Python scripts communicates to the Firebase via its SDK. That is working for me at this moment, and eliminates writing boilerplate API code. Any tips on how to run a site on a $5 VPS? I don't know. From what I've used of Python, it is pretty memory heavy and doesn't do well left alone unsupervised. I could be wrong, but that was my experience trying various web frameworks. My app servers were all $5 VPS, with only Ninx, PHP, PHP-FPM, and Memcached. PHP was cached, Ninx assets were cached, and data was cached in RAM with Memcached, which was updated from RemoteDB server on cache expire. I would then stack as many of those behind a load balancer as needed, Ninx as reverse proxy basically, and scaled up to serving hundreds of terabytes of data monthly and billions of page views. So while it was $5 VPS, it was really a small cloud of them behind another $5 VPS as a load balancer with a $25 database server supporting the data. Still cheaper than Amazon for equivalent loads. Did you use a dedicated database from the start of your project? Or did you use a simpler one like Sclite and then scaled up to your current architecture when you got more users load to your site? Thank you very much. The only thing I can think of while reading your comment was, wow, this is elegant. Have you considered productize, templatize this stack, and selling some kind license supporting deal? Although a more marketable solution will be a Redis plus node-based stack. While this is elegant. Greater than have you considered productize, templatize this stack, and selling some kind, greater than license, supporting deal. It's really just a basic install of FreeBED and a bunch of shell scripts. As far as I'm concerned, anyone with a bit of time could Google for themselves into production. I am always happy to, and have, contracted to build similar setups for other people for CDN delivery etc., but that was just another day in the life of a sysadmin basically. Email in profile if you have any other questions. I run a SaaS that makes between $1,000 on a $5 VM. My operations are as follows. On the VM, Node.js plus React SSR, Ninx, Certbot to manage my SSL certificate, integrated with Grafana's cloud service, free tier. Outside of the VM, managed Mongo cluster, API health checks every 3 minutes with email alerts. I use multiple uptime services to check from different regions. DB backup cron jobs. Backups are stored in 2 cloud providers. Service desk for customers to send queries, raise issues. Alerts if CPU RAM usage is too high. Never got an alert for the past 2 years. I also nuke the VM once a year and reprovision, otherwise you have to maintain the OS, do cleanup, etc. Future work. Find way to backup my DNS records. Probably need to monitor the SSL certificate expiration in case Certbot breaks. CCD. That is really awesome. Nuke the VM once a year and reprovision, otherwise you have to maintain the OS, do cleanup, etc. That is really interesting. What are you using to reset up your entire infrastructure after purging a VM? How do you manage the downtime between one VM purge to setting up the next one? I would love to know, going beyond the VPS, what is your total infrastructure plus maintenance cost? Sklite is cool, but you'll find Postgres will perform a lot better on average and not use much more resources. It only needs like 16 MB of RAM by default. It only needs like 16 MB of RAM by default. Till. Thank you very much. I always wanted to invest more time in Postgres, but I just find the Windows environment to be clunky when working with it. Like PSQL isn't supported in a Windows environment, last time I checked few months ago, and setting up the Postgres environment on WSL was quite annoying as you have to figure out port forwarding. I know setting up a Postgres on a local machine directly, or even without Docker, may not be a mature decision, but that is the hacky reason why I keep going back to Sklite, as it is the easiest solution to get started with a database. If you're using an IDE, many have DB browsers built right in. All JetBrains IDEs for X. But hey, nothing wrong with easy usually. Nonsense. For read-heavy content sites, Sklite will obviously perform better. Is there anything preventing a continuous rinse and repeat cycle of creating Mormon dating sites for purchase and shut down by the church? I was inspired to do the same, however. There are now at least 2 dating apps that cater specifically to Mormons. I think the time when the church thought they could buy out that market segment has passed. A lot of work to keep the ad money coming in, or was that just a Google AdWords? Ads were the easy part once I stopped trying to run the ad containers and servers myself. When I started, it was long waterfall chains of terrible JavaScript loaders, which ended at Google typically. When header bidding came out, it made the advertising world orders of magnitude better for end users, ad buyers, and publishers. Orders of magnitude better for end users, ad buyers, and publishers. Well, not end users. They're getting ads. But I would assume that ad buyers and publishers have exclusive improvements. After all, it's not like the ad companies took a substantially smaller cut. It either lowers the cost to ad buyers, or it increases the revenue to publishers. Since it's pretty much the same number, it doesn't seem both can be true. Well, not end users. They're getting ads. I think advertising is a powerful way to support free-ish content, and there are ways to use advertising tastefully. People who don't want to participate have options to opt out, and are obviously welcome to not make server requests. I'm supposed to accurately predict whether a website will serve me ads or not, before I've ever connected to it. Right, Not sure why we didn't think of that sooner. It was long waterfall chains of terrible JavaScript loaders. Well, not end users. They're getting ads. Why not? Would you prefer ads, or ads with terrible JavaScript loaders? I would prefer ads with terrible JavaScript loaders, as they are easier to more completely and reliably block. The ads still use JavaScript. They are just not as terrible. AKA waterfall. Lol, what are you talking about? Any improvement in conversion rate is going to help the publisher, the network, and the ad buyer. I'll just ignore the part about what you said about end users, other than to say it's arguable. Any improvement in conversion rate is going to help the publisher, the network, and the ad buyer. Since ad buyers pay per conversion, I don't actually think it helps them to increase the conversion rate. Don't be dense. If you pay $5 per conversion and earn $10 per conversion, you make $5 profit as an ad buyer. What happens if you have 2 conversions? 3, 20. You make more profit. Alternatively, think about the flip side. How in the world could you possibly think having a lower conversion rate is good for the ad buyer? A 0% rate. How did you sell? What was your multiple? Did you use a broker? I have run my one-man business for 13 years now. Virtual.com. Back then I saw the market moving to the cloud and thought bringing device access there was needed. There was no one really doing this cheaply and easily. I posted a link to my software on the Raspberry Pi forum when that board came out and started getting my customers immediately that way. It took a year to write the initial software. I've been adding updates and features ever since. I have made several $1 million in profit since then, and it's still going strong. I don't really have any competition at my price point. That's awesome. Congrats. Are there any feature requests, product directions that have been requested that you've rejected, neglected? For better or worse? Solo building is often about hard decisions on what not to do. And with a generic piece of software like this, I imagine there are plenty of niche operators asking for just one thing to make it perfect for XXXXX. Yes, generally, I reject any request if it's customization just for one customer. I try to generalize the change by e.g. adding an API call. Also, I get requests to keep XP Win 7 support, which I reject often. The biggest thing I learned is to basically do nothing on the product, unless it's needed. I used to be tempted to change things, add features for fun and for a challenge, but it's a mistake. The reason is it might introduce bugs. Too many customers and big companies rely on virtual now day to day, and the software is complex enough that it's hard to tell if the bug was always there, or just from the new edition. I'm very reluctant to even upgrade the compiler, unless I have to for a new OS, etc. Also, I get requests to keep XP Win 7 support, which I reject often. XP sure, but Win 7. Oh, the virtual website does a really good job of hiding the fact that it's paid. I did all the research and was really excited about a convenient solution until I found out that it's $50. Oops. Though I guess I should have expected that on a comment thread about businesses, huh? But there's literally a purchase link in the top menu bar. Should it have a big blinking box saying, "It ain't free"? Yep. I run ExtensionPay, a service to allow browser extension developers to take payments in their extensions. ExtensionPay.com. I made it after Google shut down their Chrome Web Store payment system, and I realized how annoying it was to take payments in extensions. So I made it for my own extensions, and also for anyone who wanted to try monetizing their extensions with payments. The included library is open source if anyone is curious. Jithan So far it's made extension developers around $175,000. Pretty cool. For anyone who's interested in answering, I'd be curious to hear your thinking on how you keep focused and avoid rabbit holes, particularly with build versus buy decisions. I've had an intentionally small business that I've been working on for a few years now, but I keep getting distracted by my desire to work on the stack itself instead of the core business offering. I've done a very good job of replacing Shopify with WooCommerce, Google Analytics with Plausible, exploring about every static site generator as a replacement for my slow CMS, automating my social media content, etc. I've done an absolutely shitty job of growing the actual core business. Particularly for those of you coming from jobs in a corporate environment. How do you keep your focus on your core offering instead of spending all of your time fixing your tech stack? But I keep getting distracted by my desire to work on the stack itself instead of the core business offering. The answer should be obvious. You are selling the end product, not your tech stack. For an early-stage company, there is zero benefit to wasting time on pointless engineering purism. You should use as much SaaS and other pre-built software as you possibly can, and spend 100% of your effort on your core offering. You are selling the end product, not your tech stack. I think the mentality is that by having a better tech stack, the product will be better, and also more future-proof. Personally, I always waste time upgrading all the libraries to the latest versions and maintain the code up to the current standards. Maybe it doesn't really improve the product, but it gives me confidence that I am always ready to implement whatever features or most recent improvements in technology I could take advantage of. BeatHatFlight.com.au started 5 years ago next month. Flight hotel car rental search, plus deals that I find for Australians. Running it is actually fairly easy. It started as a deals site, then I added in some white-labeled software, mailing list, FB page, and frankly it's a numbers game. More visitors equals more ads, affiliate revenue. It's not huge, but it's been interesting at least, and very little in the way of expenses. Huge fan of your site. My wife is Australian and moved here to be with her. I used your site when purchasing my one-way ticket. I've posted before and never share any specific details. I run a small one-person business in a niche industry selling a widget. Profitable from day one, pays all the bills, but is not the sole income. Got started by seeing a need in an adjacent industry and building the product. I do everything myself. Dev, care, support, everything. It's not too bad at this size, and I can probably scale and continue on my own at 10x the demand. Word of mouth keeps things rolling so far, and recent trends haven't impacted me much. Someone else posted and I second, wasting time on the stack instead of the product offering or marketing is easy to do and rarely benefits things. It's hard to do things like advertising or product refinement, which I don't find interesting. Thanks for asking and posting the old link. I for one never get tired of these types of questions. I don't have an online biz, successful or not. I find these inspiring and depressing. Depressing because I feel like I never have any ideas. Everyone always say, look at your pain points or scratch your own itch. I don't seem to have an itch, and as for pain points, I just seem to go the flow and don't think of anything as a pain point. That guy message. Codapad was a one-man show for a while, I believe. On Lifens. As long as she cuts me in at 25% plus, I'm down. I've actually had this conversation with a swear friend before, and she wouldn't budge over sharing 0%. I have an expensive lifestyle, she twits. Lol. Never spent $1 on such stupidity, and would only do it for profit sharing with some hardworking debutante equals P.